All right. Well, good morning. If you're in the New York or the East Coast time zone, apologies to the West Coast because it would be a little bit early. But I'm Cate Luzio. I'm the founder and CEO at Luminary, and this is Goaldigger on LinkedIn Live. And today I have the pleasure of actually we met a little over a year ago. This is kind of a bizarre story. Alex, you and I were supposed to be on a panel together. And that's how we got connected. I knew about you, but that's how we got connected. And so we've actually never met in person. And you have done so much in a year. Your book came out. So Alex Carter, welcome to Goaldigger.
Thank you, Cate. It's a pleasure to be here. And I remember that we did like 3 prep calls for an event that never happened.
Yes.
Right? That's what was up. And I was looking forward to it. And about 2 weeks before, that's when everything shut down.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so we got connected and we're on these prep calls. And then we realized we have a lot in common. Then pandemic sort of happens. Your book is coming out. We have you at Luminary virtually. One of our I think our pretty early on in the pandemic for Ask for More. And it was great. It was interactive. And you've been doing so much in the past year. Also virtual schooling with your daughter. So before we get into the whole idea of Ask for More, and I have a lot of questions, one that's coming from a lot of our members at Luminary, but just more importantly, just from the community itself. Tell us a little bit about your story and what led you, particularly around negotiation, and why this topic is so important to you.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 reasons for that. One is that earlier on in my career, now remember, Cate, I had trained in negotiation. I had actually trained to be a mediator in high conflict disputes. And so I was expert at turning all of my skills on other people and using them to help other people. And I found that I hesitated to do it for myself. And I knew that I couldn't be the only professional woman who was an incredible, fearless negotiator for other people, but then struggled to say, I'm worthy of that same skill set applied to myself. The second thing is that the first time I did negotiate my salary, I got life-changing advice from a senior woman. So I received an offer that was really pretty good, Cate, and I had that moment that I think so many people have where they feel like, this is great, this is my dream job, I should just take it. But I held off and said, let me run my numbers. And I called this senior woman and she said, Alex, no, you are going to get back in there and you're going to ask for more. Because when you teach someone how to value you, you teach him how to value all women. So if you're not going to go back in there and ask for more for yourself, I want you to do it for the woman who's coming after you. Do it for the sisterhood. Do it for the sisterhood. And so that was the moment, Cate, that I thought, if I do this for myself, this is not selfish. This is an act of service that's going to normalize what it is for a woman to stand up and claim what she is worth.
And so did you do that?
I sure did. I asked for more. And now, Cate, I got it immediately. And I looked back and I thought, oh, damn, man, like I should have asked for even more, right? And so here's the thing, right? You do that. And at the time, I'd never done it before. I had worked, Cate, for organizations that were all lockstep, And so I thought, well, maybe I'm going to telegraph a certain thing when I negotiate. No, now I know better, right? Number one, they expect you to negotiate. Even in a pandemic, we're going to talk about that. I know they expect you to negotiate. Number 2, it benefits other people, other women coming after you. And number 3, when you negotiate for yourself, you are telling that organization what kind of a negotiator you will be for them, right? Bam, it conveys leadership. It conveys abilities. And that's what you want. You want to teach people from moment one, this is what you're going to get when you hire me.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And then also, once they've hired you, they also know that you're not just going to lay down when that next performance review comes or that next discussion about, hey, where's my raise or my promotion? They know you're going to be tough, and they know that they have to value that within you, right? I mean, that really lays the foundation too. If you go in and just say, I'll take what I can get, they know over time they can do the same thing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only does it, there are so many studies documenting if you don't negotiate at first, how much you lose, over the course of your career, but it's more than that, right? If I go in, Cate, and I'm negotiating for a salary, I'm negotiating for more than that. Right. I'm negotiating for where I want to be in 10 years. And that starts with how you claim your worth and how you step into that room the first time.
So we're in the midst of this crazy pandemic. Your book is out, which, by the way, we at Luminary, we love. I gave out when we had your book talk and we bought bunches of copies. I gave that out actually to any member that was coming back in the space once we reopened. And what I love is that it's not just about negotiation and salary. It's about everything in your life.
Yeah, negotiation is just a conversation. Early on in my career, Cate, I had this limited view of negotiation that held me back. I thought it was just the once a year or once a quarter money conversations, right? Here are the resources I need for my department, or here's the salary, the comp that I want this year. No, it's any conversation where I'm teaching someone how to value me and teaching them how to think about my expertise. Negotiation is not just numbers, it's messages, and the messages come first. That is what you can be steering every day of the year, both at work and, frankly, at home.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Plus, if we think about world pre-pandemic, right? Negotiation around flexibility, negotiation around working from home. That was such a daunting conversation to have with your boss, right?
Yes.
And now it's normalized, but yet still, I think for women in particular, and we've seen 5 million women out of the workforce, 2 million that aren't even looking for a job. How do we help them as they're looking to get back into the workforce, as they're looking to sort of stay tethered to their roles, their communities, their skills, that this becomes super part of their natural conversation and everything that they do? How do we teach that?
Yeah, absolutely. I first want to say that those crushing numbers that you mentioned, the numbers that frankly keep me up at night thinking about just the millions of women. And by the way, many of them are our sisters of color, right? Who, have been systematically disempowered. And there are so many things contributing to that. It's schooling, kids may be virtual, it may be a lack of structural supports. I mean, just absolutely tons of things, right? At the same time, I'm all about controlling what we can control. And it is important to remember that you're not just negotiating for money when you step into the job. I want women to remember that you are negotiating for everything you need to be successful and supported after day one, right? So not just about salary and bonus, but thinking about flex time, right? What are the hours that you need? It could be even health benefits, educational benefits. Cate, it could even be time off of Zoom, time for deep work, right? The kind of innovative, forward-thinking work that companies need to be able, frankly, to pull themselves out of this and be stronger than before. And if I could give one tip for that. So when I advise people to make asks in connection with a job, I like them to do it in this formula. It's called the I-we. Here's what I'm asking for, Cate, and here's how we are all going to benefit from it, right? So in other words, when you hire me at this level for this position, when I am able to work these hours and with these supports, that is how I'll be able to do my highest and best for this department and achieve the 5 goals that we talked about earlier on in the conversation.
And easier said than done, right? It's hard, I think, and I don't generalize women. I mean, you and I, we've had this conversation. I think it's harder for women, but it's easier said than done, right? There is this fear factor. There is this, well, what if there's consequences? There's ramifications. There's retaliation, right? For those even asking for anything, right? What do you say when there's deflection, right? When the boss says, well, no, that's not how we work, or well, no one else has asked for that. Why should you be getting that? And I can go back to my 20 years in finance, right? There was always this, well, why should she get flexibility or a day from home when no one else is asking for that? Well, it's to her situation or their situation. Everything doesn't have to be the mass, right? That's why the conversation with your manager or your leader is so important. But when you get that no, what's the next step?
Okay, I love talking about this, right? Because Cate, don't you find that a lot of women, and this has happened to me too, fear the no, right? Yeah. As though if we get a no, it's not that it's just business. It's like a referendum on our entire worth as a human being, okay? So yeah. I feel like I did an interview for Girl Boss where I said, okay, number one, no is not the end of the conversation. And it doesn't mean you have to like get on all fours and crawl out of the office and never speak of that subject again.
And hide your head. Yeah.
Hide your head. And you're like, oh God, how could I have done that? No, here's what you do. You simply ask a 4-word question. What are your concerns? That's it. Cate, we can't do that right now. What are your concerns? I don't think one flex day a week is going to work. What are your concerns? Right. That is a way for people, you're forcing them to articulate and concretize what it is that's the holdup. And very often, if you ask that question and then sit back, right, and wait, and you truly honor the answer, you can find a way to get over that objection. Yeah. But, here's the other thing I would say. If you're getting pushback or, people are saying, oh, I'm not sure. There's another thing I want you to remember, and that is the word and. Okay, let me show you how this works, Cate. I hear what you're saying about the company having a difficult time right now. And I also know that I am the best possible use of this pot of money right now. Okay, I hear that flex time is a change for you. And I also know that when I have this schedule, I can produce my highest and best and achieve the things you need me to achieve, right? So instead of saying but, just join those two things with an and. It's incredibly powerful, and it makes it a little bit harder for them to refute and come back at you.
It also makes it a positive versus a negative, and that manager is not able to say, well, they're already ticked off. That is huge in that conversation, because it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, but you need to make it a positive versus a negative.
Yes. So often people focus on like, no, I can't do that, or no, that's not going to work for me. Here's the thing about no. It's actually not really helpful. It's not specific. It's not concrete, right? If you tell me no, that's so low information of you, right? Like, I prefer to hear or to tell people, here's how we can achieve a win, right? Here's how you can say yes. Here's what I can say yes to. It's more concrete and more positive. Toward that end, I have one more word tweak, Cate. I actually, in addition to ask for more, I have a whole course, which I'm re-releasing later in the year, on being your own ultimate self-advocate. And one of the word substitutions I advise is, don't ever say compromise or concession. Because that too makes the person feel like they're losing, right? So, Karen, I need a compromise. I need a concession here. Instead, I say, Cate, here's what I can contribute to this deal. What can you contribute? Because contribution makes someone feel like he's a donor, right? Makes them feel positive. It's additive. So I want to avoid words like but and compromise, just as you said, that start to induce those negative feelings.
It's funny, early on in my life, I have 2 brothers, and I obviously a very strong father. And my mom used to say, listen, the person you need to convince of whatever you're asking for is your father. So go in there, making him feel like it's his idea and that it's a positive. What is he getting out of it? That is a benefit to, and it's ultimately a benefit to you. And I think, by the way, I have done that through my entire career, right? I used to go into client meetings. You make them feel like, by the way, this was probably better for you and it's your idea, and it's okay. It's very strategic.
It is super strategic. And I love to hear you say this, because in many respects, we have very similar personalities. Frankly, we have similar voices, right? I don't know if you've been talked to about your voice throughout your life. I sure have, right? And so here's the thing. You can be an incredibly powerful force in the room and also leave people thinking like, God, I'm so glad I had that idea to promote Cate, right? You know, that is, it's tactical. It's all part of kind of negotiating that tightrope. And frankly, some of that stuff, right? Complimenting for people, giving truthful compliments, Cate, right? So if I need something from someone, going in, not bullshitting, right? But going in and saying, I'm not going to go in and thank somebody for being a champion of gender equity if frankly that has not been the case. But I can go in and say, I want to thank you for supporting me last year. What you say around here matters and people listen to you. And so I'm here today to ask for your advice on what I should do. And very often the advice is actually, here's what I would like you to do for me. But I go in, I consult, and the person is like, what a wonderful idea. Frankly, I was just thinking of myself. Wonderful. Oh my goodness, we've had a mind meld. I love it. This is great, right? And then all of a sudden it happens.
Yeah. And I think you have to be very strategic, because one of the challenges that women have, and this is that you're in a meeting and you bring up an idea and then it's repositioned or repackaged by potentially your male peer that it was their idea. So you have to be very strategic around when you're using those tactics.
Yes. And actually, if I can talk about the subject of my latest writing project, I'm actually writing about something that helps to combat that. And it's a negotiation skill called amplification. I know you've heard of this, Cate. And this came out of, in fact, it came to prominence in the first Obama White House, where women were seriously outnumbered 2-to-1 among his senior aides. And so exactly this, Cate and I are the only two women at a very large table. Cate raises her hand and gives an idea. And then Bob across the table raises the same idea. And people say, wow, Bob, what a revelation, right? This happens every day to women in the workplace. So what women started doing was Cate raises her hand, makes an intervention, and then I raise mine. And I say, I just want to circle us back to Cate's excellent point. Here's what Cate said that I think resonates so much for this group. So speak her name and give her credit. That is the amplification formula. And this is something, my mission in Ask for More is not just that I'm asking for myself. It's that I am asking, right, for the people around me to lift others up. And so this is something that we can and should be doing and recruiting people to do for us every day in the workplace.
And it doesn't stop. I've had this experience even in this last year in particular with white women and women of color.
Yes.
Right. You're on the same stage and a woman of color has an idea and then it's almost usurped by the more senior white woman. I mean, it happens. It's not just men. And I think we have to acknowledge that. Right. So if you see something, say something.
Yes.
That's at the heart of what we do, whether you're a small business owner, you're raising money, you're in the workforce, you have to stand up not only for yourself, but for others. And sort of that amplification is huge. I want to ask something that's been coming up a lot within our community at Luminary and sort of in all of my networks is just the ask, right? So let's take it away from I'm asking something for my boss or I'm trying to get a. Oftentimes, women are like, hey, Alex, this is great. Amazing. Thank you for your help. How can I help you? Right. And then there's no ask, right? It's like, oh, I'm great. No worries. Thank you. I've heard recently from other people that we work with and speakers like, no. You always have to have your ask ready, whether that friend, as someone in your network, in your community, and you can't feel bad about it, right? If you don't feel bad about asking your boss for more money and someone actually says, how can I help you? You better be prepared with that ask.
Yeah. Okay. So let me make sure I understand. So the idea is that people are doing the approach, but they don't have their ask ready. Is that okay? Yes.
Let's put it in the context of a salary, right? So and I'll use anecdotally an example I had. So I was at JP Morgan for many years. I had an incredible boss and I was preparing for that, year-end discussion and ready to, tell him why I needed all of these things. And I walked into his office and said, here's my list he said, no. I know what you do. I'm your manager. I know what value you're adding. What's your number? What's your ask?
And you were like,
I didn't have it. I was so ready to defend why I was so good and why I should have it. And so he said, you got 24 hours, Cate. Come back to me with your number. Thankfully, he did that. And so when I went back and I had thought about it, he actually said, this is not unreasonable. I'll see what we can do. Long story short, when he did come back, he said, he did better than what I asked for. And he said, never, ever walk into a meeting or in a conversation and not have your ask ready. And I think, again, regardless of negotiating a salary, but if you are trying to amplify yourself, your business, your job, you better know your ask depending on who's asking you.
Oh, Cate, I actually just got chills because I feel like if more managers did that for women they were mentoring, the world would be a better place. Like, normalize asking. Okay, so Cate, this is why I wrote Ask for More, okay? Because I looked out at the negotiation literature that was out there, and much of it is really good. It starts from the moment you get at the table, and you have missed most of what you need to do. The very first things I teach people to do in Ask for More are to ask themselves questions that get their ask ready. So, what is the problem I am solving in this negotiation, right? Why do I need this negotiation? Number two, what do I need? And then thinking about putting your needs in two buckets, like the tangible, right? So that's your numbers and all of the different numbers, all of the different things that make up your comp or your title, the things you can touch, see, or count. But then thinking about the intangibles, right? What else do I need? I need support in this role. Okay, what does that look like? I need more client interfacing. Okay, what does that look like? So that you go in, not even just with the number, right? But you say, okay, here's what I need. This position is this amount of comp. Here's how that looks. And also, in order to run this department effectively, I need the following in support, right? I need the following in resources, et cetera, et cetera. And it'd be really useful for me to have a mentor. Here's the person I'm thinking about. So you have the complete ask and making it as easy as possible for people to say yes.
That's it. Making it possible for people to say yes, but also yes to what? So let me throw another thing out at you. So
yeah.
I'm a small business owner. I'm representing lots of small business owners, whoever's fundraising. A lot of times you get, hey, how can I help you? And so I always say, buy from me. Right? Like, how can you help me? You want to support me? Buy from me. Be a part of Luminary, whatever that is. If I'm a small business owner and I'm creating shoes, buy from me, right? Buy from me as a small business owner. Buy from a woman. And so, but a lot of what we hear is, well, I don't want to have, I feel that feels icky or that feels uncomfortable. And what I say is get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? You're trying to keep your business in business. What advice do you have when you have that? Because I think there's also a confidence factor in this.
Yeah. Okay. So I have several things to say on this. Number one, remember earlier when your mom said your job is to go in and convince your dad?
Absolutely.
Your dad is actually the second person you need to convince. And I posted about this on my Instagram just the other day. And I said, before you look at somebody else and you make an ask, you have to first be able to look at yourself in the mirror and know 100% that you are worth what you are about to ask for. So the first part of this is me getting comfortable saying, here's the thing. I don't care whether it's a friend. We negotiated, right? I mean, I knew you. We were, professional acquaintances. I thought of you very highly. And when you said, would you like to come into Luminary to speak? I said, listen, I'd love to do it. Here's a big concern of mine right now. I need to sell books. What's possible, right? And right. You said, well, Alex, here's my concern, right? I'm running this business during the pandemic. And we had an honest conversation about what each one of us needed. And here we are today, totally fine, right?
Exactly.
So, right? Nothing happened, folks, right? It's all good. And so here is the thing, right? You've got to normalize knowing that you are worth the ask. And if somebody is asking you, how can I help you? That is a red carpet rolled out, neon sign invitation. Have some asks ready, right? And this includes, Cate, I want to normalize women who are friends or acquaintances paying each other their full rate, right? If there is a woman in your life, and do the same for yourself, right? If there's a woman in your life and you want to show you love her, pay her damn rate. That's it, right? Don't ask for discounts. Show her you love her and ask for that love in return, right? Cate, here's what it costs to bring me in to speak. I'm going to do an incredible job for you. I so appreciate you supporting me.
Absolutely.
Right? That's it.
And I think that's the other, thinking about, I always say when I get asked to speak, if it's a small business, if it's an organization that I know doesn't have, funds, I'm like, absolutely. If it's a company that has budget, I'm like, no, this is my rate. And I'm not just going to do it for the exposure. You're going to pay me my worth. You're going to pay me my worth, right?
I cannot even. The number of times that somebody has been like, well, this would be great exposure for you. And I'm like, listen, honey, okay, I'm doing like 6 keynotes a month. I don't need your exposure, right? And I will, Cate, I've had a number of people say, we don't pay speakers, right? And then I just look them in the eye and I say, so you're bringing me in to train your women how to negotiate for their worth. And what kind of speaker would I be if I didn't practice that mission behind the scenes?
Exactly.
Right? They pay every time. Yeah.
Of course. And also, if they don't want to pay, then you move on.
Then we move on, right? And there have been people who've said, totally respect it. That's the other thing. Totally respect it. We don't have it in the budget right now. And then they come back because you have taught them how to value you. This happened to me recently. There was a company I spoke to 6 months ago. They didn't have the budget. And you know what I said? I'm like, here are 3 ideas for how you can get the budget, right? And they went back and did the work. And I'm speaking to them in 2 weeks, right? Win-win. I noticed, Cate, we've got a couple of questions here. And I don't...
Yeah, one of the questions that I love, because I totally can align with this, is I found myself giving a lot to people and not getting a return on my investment. How do you deal with those who talk the talk and really don't walk the walk?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Number 1, remember how I said you go back to the beginning of ask for more and you define what you need from client relationships. Okay. That is number 1. When you do that work, you then have that up next to your computer and you can look and be like, am I getting these things from this client? No. And then sometimes negotiation is about setting boundaries and then potentially firing that client. I'm here today to say, just because maybe I could train you to get every client to say yes, doesn't mean that that is the right client for you. Right. If you have said, right, Cate, here's what I can do and what I can't do, right? Let me know if you'd like to continue working together and the person can't hold to your boundaries, then that just means that there's a better client out there for you. Period. Full stop. Sometimes asking for more means saying no to the people, the jobs, the clients who don't value you and what you are worth. Full stop.
And it's okay to walk away from that, right? Yes. It's okay to walk away. I think the other thing that, you can ask, you can negotiate. And if the answer is still no, you have to be okay with that. And if it's really worth it, then you figure out new ways to negotiate, right? Because I always say the no is just the starting point, right? There's always another conversation to be had.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I think life is long, Cate. If we have an honest conversation and we discover that we can't work together right now and mutually meet our needs, that's great, right? No animosity, because you never know. It could happen in the future, right? I always tell people you want to ask because then you'll know you did, right? If you asked for the raise, if you asked for the promotion and you were told, not now, let's renew in 6 months, then you know you tried and you laid the groundwork for possibly a future yes. Always worth it to ask in the first place.
Always, right? Yeah. Like you said in the very beginning of this conversation, if you hadn't talked to that senior woman mentor who said, wait a second, Alex, no, you got to go back and ask for, be prepared for that ask. You also don't get another chance, right?
Yeah.
So you could completely devalue yourself, your business, whatever you're asking for. And that's it. You've blown it.
Yes. And here's what I want to say to everybody who's listening to this and thinks, oh crap, I have blown it. Okay. There is always a chance to try again. It is important to seize every opportunity you can. If you, right, and I've talked to so many people who said, God, I didn't negotiate when I first got there, right? You will have future chances. I want to equip you now so that next time you will know, right? Just the way I asked for more, but looking back, I'm like, damn, I could have gotten a lot more. I should have really pushed that pedal to the metal, right? You want to seize those opportunities, but if you haven't before, now is a great time to start.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And so, Alex, I've put in the chat, obviously, your best-selling book, Ask for More. If those that are watching, listening, commenting do not have it, although many say they've already read it, go out and buy it. It is incredible. I don't care if you are the best negotiator out there. You will learn from this. Alex, what can we expect from you next?
Yeah, so great question. I am actually doing a ton of rooms on Clubhouse recently. So if you're around at noon Eastern today, I'll be hosting Negotiation Power Hour in the Women in Business Club. So you can find me there regularly. And I would also ask people to go to alexcarterasks.com, my website, and get on my mailing list because I'm going to be running coming up on the first year birthday of Ask for More in early May. I'm running a 7-day challenge, 7 days to ask for more, where every day we're going to be working on one step to get you further to your goal. Thousands of people did it with me in January and achieved incredible results. We're running that again in late April. And so I'd love for you to be part of it. And please come find me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I show up there every day, and truly, my mission in life is to be your partner in your long-term success. And so I'd love for you to invite me in and let me know how I can help you.
I love you. That we'll publish that too in the Luminary newsletter as well, Alex. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully at some point we will get to meet in person versus only virtual.
Well, I know you're in Jersey a lot in the summer, right? So don't worry. We're gonna hook this up. I'm confident of it.
Thank you so much, Alex. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Cate. It's been a pleasure. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
And now back-to-back episodes of Goaldigger. We now have, and I love Alex. She is amazing. And but we now have a very good friend, confidant, mentor, member, advisory board member. And we actually had a session last night with Mita Malik, who is and I always get your title messed up because it's actually switched, but Head of Inclusion, Equity, and Impact at Carta, formerly the head of DE&I at Unilever North America. Welcome, Mita.
Thank you. I made it to Goaldigger. Yay.
We've been trying to get this scheduled.
No, I'm so happy to be
started. But you have a very busy life. So we have to, and a relatively 5-month job. So, all right, Mita, this is going to be sort of the power 30 minutes of, I have learned more from you since that first meeting. We were at the Ace Hotel. Luminary was being built. We had that first conversation thanks to, I think, Claude, right? Claude Silver. So shout out to Claude. And ever since then, you've become not just a friend, but really a mentor. Where does this ability to connect with people, to understand their challenges, to be empathetic, where does that come from?
Well, I feel the same way about you. So thank you for being a mentor to me and a friend. I think it starts from my childhood. I grew up outside of Boston. I'm the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. We were a handful of families of color. And I was bullied both verbally and physically during my transformative years by my peers. They let me know every single day that I didn't belong. And so I think when you have those sort of experiences, And like I say to you, like our stories are constantly being rewritten. And last year was a year of all of our stories being rewritten. And if we can have the courage to share our stories, there's a lot of power in that. And there's a lot of community in that. And because of those experiences, I guess I'm just more empathetic as a result of it. Now there's a journey. It's not like I'm the most empathetic I can be, but I think that just has given me a lot of curiosity and interest in what other people go through. And I want to give people a chance to share and to honor those experiences.
Yeah, I love that, and I think you're right. We're not, it's not a journey we're done with. You're constantly evolving and being more empathetic to other situations. I want to, as we talk about these statistics, and I mentioned them before, Alex, and obviously on our panel last night. So many women, 5 million out of the workforce, and that number just continues to grow. You have people that are really feeling overwhelmed. There's a big lack of confidence around how do they take on more? Should they leave their jobs? What do they do? You have had a very interesting career path. It's non-traditional and not what you set out your career to do for many, many years. You really pivoted to something completely different within the world of Unilever and now have leveraged that into almost a whole new career. And I think there are a lot of women that say, am I stuck on this same path forever? Do I pivot? What do I do here? So can you talk a little bit about how you made that, where you came from to where you are now?
Well, if I share with you, and you heard my childhood story, at the same time I didn't grow up in the Instagram, LinkedIn Live era.
Yeah.
I was desperate for Black and brown role models. So I remember being a young girl and being obsessed with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, not for Will Smith, but for Tatiana Ali, because I never saw people like me reflected. And wow, the world has changed now. But that's why I went into marketing and storytelling, because I wanted more people like me represented in campaigns, represented in products and services. And I was running one of the biggest portfolios at Unilever, which is hand and body lotions. Hopefully you've used or are using Vaseline Suave and Dove lotions. And I had my CEO at the time come and ask me to run DE&I because no one had done it there before. And I was hesitant because I was on a marketing track. And it was my younger brother who said to me, with everything you've been through in your life and everything you advocate for, why wouldn't you do this? So my lesson there was that sometimes people see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And to embrace that and trust that, because that changed sort of the course of my life and career. And because I chose to do something different and take a risk, it's paid off. Sometimes risks don't pay off, and that's okay too. And so that's how I ended up in DE&I. And for me, it's not that far of a leap, because it's still, you're still working on workforce, but you're also thinking about how do your brands and products and services show up in the marketplace? You're thinking about supplier diversity, which I know, Cate, you and Luminary are very passionate about. And you're talking about right now in this moment, you can say you stand for values, but are you willing to stand up for them in the moments that matter as leaders in companies?
So it's so interesting to me as someone who spent a long time in corporate America, right? You're on this career path. This is what you know, right? And so many people think it's A to B to C to D, right? So I'm here, I want to be the CMO of the company, right? You really, again, and I want to talk about this because I think it's important also for companies to understand that you don't have to also be a lifelong learner and person in HR in order to take on. And we had this conversation in that first discussion at the end. You took all of what you knew about marketing and branding and being in the trenches, right, on the client side, to then transfer that into how do you show up as a company as externally, but also internally. Right. And that's not common, right? For most people, they say, I've got to stay on this path. So your brother told you, yeah, let's do this. But how scary was that when you're like, I'm going to take all this marketing experience and now go into diversity, equity, inclusion?
It was really scary. I was comfortable every day of my life in the beginning. And I remember we talked about this last night on an amazing panel you hosted for Luminary, is that I had one of my first VPs at Avon when I worked there told me, when you're comfortable, it's time to get uncomfortable. And so that's when, for me at least, I know I've stopped growing and learning. And so I would say probably that first year, and even now, I'm in a new job now, It's uncomfortable, but that's when I know I'm learning and I'm pushing and I'm growing. And I also think one of the things I thought when I moved into this space was that I had to unlearn everything I knew about being a business person. Like, forget how to read a P&L, forget all this stuff. Now you got to go and be a DE&I person, whatever that means. And actually, being a business leader has served me really well in this role. I still consider myself a business leader, but really understanding how a business runs and operates. And it's a chicken and an egg. You need the business to be doing well to fund this work. And you need to fund this work for the business to do well.
Right.
So it is something that is a virtuous cycle.
So we got to know each other in your former role at Unilever, and you were a massive advocate of ours. And I really want to shout out to Mita. We launched at the end of last year a massive fellowship program to support women-owned businesses and now women that have been impacted by COVID. And you were an advocate, you were an influencer, you were also sort of spearheading so much within the Unilever United for America initiative. You left around 5 months ago, and took this role at Cate, completely new industry.
Yes.
That confidence to be able to say, this is what I want to do, and I'm switching gears yet again. Where did that come from? Because you're also in the middle of a pandemic. You're not seeing people to have those coffee chats.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I would say that another part of my story, and as you know, something that changed my life forever, is losing my dad really suddenly in 2017 on Valentine's Day. And we just celebrated his 4-year anniversary of his passing. And, anytime you have loss or grief in your life, that was the first time that I had experienced someone who was so important to me immediately that I lost. Your confidence is shaken. You're going through that grief process. I know Sheryl Sandberg has talked about it a lot, and a lot of other people have been really vocal, and that's important. And then all of a sudden you start to think, wow, life is so precious. I only have one life to live. Like, what do I have to lose? That's honestly, I think, that's where that confidence has come from, just to say,
got to do it.
No one knows what tomorrow brings, right? And so literally, for me, it was no one knows what tomorrow brings. So I just have to do it. What do I have to lose?
So rip that Band-Aid off and take a risk, but it's a calculated risk, because you also know that your reputation precedes you, your skills and your background and your always, and we talked about this last night, you can always go back to what you were doing, right?
Right, of course.
So you left Unilever, you're now at Cate, a very different industry, fintech. You've never met your manager or your bosses or your leadership team in person.
Right.
You've never met your team in person. It's all virtual. And you also had to jump into an industry and a technology that you weren't familiar with. So what advice would you give others that are making those switches or feeling uncomfortable about that?
Yeah, I would say, like you said, it's a calculated risk. There are many different micro reasons why I left, but the biggest reason was, as much as I loved Unilever and what we did with Luminary, for United for America, and so many great things we were working on, I was comfortable.
Right.
I knew how to make impact. It's sort of like my learning had gone with this, right? And we can all experience that. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to leave a big company, I'm not going to do it to go to another big company. And a mentor said this to me. He said, you're a big company person. You can always go back and work at a big company, but go to something that's much smaller, that's being valued as a unicorn, that's in fintech, where you get to work directly for the CEO. It's very different.
Right.
And so I think you have to, like you said, like do an audit of why you want to make the move, right? Then, and make a calculated risk. I think the second thing is, as we talked about last night in this Zoom world, just to really think about, as you're taking the job in the first 90 days, like, who are the key stakeholders that you really need to know to make sure you and the work you're going to do in the company can be successful, and really be building those relationships. I think the third thing I've sort of been trying to practice is be kind to myself, because there's so much to learn and there's not an expiration date on learning. And so to pace yourself, because if I am burning myself out on Zoom calls from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, which I've done, right?
Yeah.
am like, Cate, can you just wait 1 minute? I'm going to go to the bathroom and come back. Like, what? No.
Exactly.
So like, I've been really, and the company's been super supportive, and people do this role modeling. Like whether it's like, hey, I'm going to take an hour to do Peloton. It's on my calendar. I'm taking a wellness walk. For me, because my boss, who is the CEO, sits in San Francisco and I'm in Jersey City. We've got a lot of time zones. We're a global company, office in Rio. I put dinner like 3 nights a week with my kids from 6 to 7:30. And I put that publicly. I'm not hiding it on my calendar.
Right.
People know what I'm doing. So those are some of the things I'm trying to practice.
Do you think that, and you write extensively on LinkedIn and other Fairy God Boss and Thrive and so many different Working Mother, you have been really vocal about the disproportionate impact this has had on working moms. You as a working mom yourself, what do you think companies should be doing right now to be supporting? Yes, they're women in general, but I think for you, importantly, is the working mothers that are sitting in these companies, small, medium, and large, by the way. It's not just the big companies.
Yeah. And I say working mothers because, as you say, that's my experience. I have a 5 and 8-year-old. And we know that women face all sorts of systemic bias. So then when you're a mother on top of that, but honestly, it's about caregiving. So anybody who's caregiving, I have friends who are taking care of elderly relatives, parents, right? So if you think about it from that lens, I'm still surprised, Cate, that there's still in some companies this idea of core operating hours.
Yeah.
Like there's no such thing as core operating hours, this idea of FaceTime, which we've talked about. So number one, stop focusing on core operating hours. It's the individual operating hours and allowing for the space to say, hey, Cate, I know like you have a stand up every day at 3. Could we move that actually to 2? Because that's when my daughter naps and it would actually work much better for me.
Yeah.
Right. And then the second thing is like, just prioritize, focus on the outputs, like not like, what is it that you need me to do? And I will get it done by Friday. Right. And not micromanaging me and slacking me, texting me, calling me, emailing, right? Just to say, like, we've agreed, this is what is due on Friday. And then I think the third thing is just, there's so much that we've talked about flexible schedules, getting paid for 5 days of work, but working 4 days. Just allowing people the flexibility with policies and programs that support all of that is so important.
Yeah, I kind of joke around about this, but in my former life as a banker, right, you would have, and I mean, women did it too, but men would do, I'm going to go golfing on the Friday to take out clients, right? So that's a whole day gone. And I wasn't monitoring their performance, right? I was thinking, okay, great. If they're golfing, great, bring in the client. But more than that, it was like, what do I care about? To your point, is the output, right? If they can get their job done in 3 days or 4 days, why do I care? If there's still performance and there's still teamwork and there's still engagement. When you think about the world that you're now in, right? FinTech, it's very different. It's a very different operating schedule as well. It's almost just 24 hours. For your teams, how important has it been for you to kind of set those conversations, those boundaries, but equally with your manager around, I have 2 kids. I am going to do dinners. I am going to do this. Well, you have to practice self-care as well.
It's important because of the role I'm in. It's important because I'm at a senior level. It's important to role model. It's important for all those things, because if I don't do it, then how can I be practicing and preaching this to anybody else? And my biggest advice for leaders right now is that I know that there's so much we can't control right now. It is scary. It is ambiguous. There's a lot happening in the world, but don't then use that as an opportunity to control your teams. Right? Because that's what's happening, because we don't have control over what's happening in our daily lives. And then don't use that as an opportunity to try to, where's Cate? I don't see her online. Let me find 5 different ways in which I can get back in touch with her. Right? Just don't do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, now Luminary. You've spent a lot of time there, and hopefully we'll have you back soon when this world kind of changes again. But I have a team that's really, it's half kind of in the space, half the week, some remote, depending on their situations. What I care about is output. What I care about is meeting deadlines. And so, again, if I can trust my team to meet that and to perform, that's a huge part of this trust factor. So how do you build that up, particularly when you're in a new role? I don't care what level you are, and you're trying to figure out, I need credibility. I need to build that trust both ways, right? With your leadership team and also with the team that you manage. What are your tips around building trust within an organization?
This is my approach. I trust you until you prove me otherwise. That's just how I lead in life. And so I think I don't go in thinking that I'm going to distrust Cate. Why would I do that? Because we're building a relationship. I'm going to go in and give myself to the relationship, and hopefully you as well, and we'll get to know each other. There was fantastic advice that our friend last night gave from Amex. Can you remind me of who?
Yes, Ling. Yes.
Who said, actually, the devil is in the details. And when you're starting a new role, if you get into the details in the beginning, then you sort of let it go.
Right.
And then the trust builds. And I love that, because we all face this like challenge of not wanting to micromanage, right? And I get that. But you also, when you're starting a new role, take the time to get to know what people are working on and what they want to work on. And then you can zoom out, but then you can trust them.
Right.
Because you know what they're working on.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important. And I think, it's just, again, about getting to know each other. I have been trying to, now that I'm 5 months in, I have key stakeholders, and then just people like, I want friends. We all do at work. Right. And so I'm just like, hey, Cate, I really like you and we sparked. Can we just meet once a month? And people are like, yeah. So I just think also what we have to do in this world is just be much more intentional, because the time is flying by, and I'm not just going to run into you right now at the Luminary kitchen and say, hey, it's 4:00, let's grab some wine. It's just different now. And we'll get back to that someday, but just to be more intentional about reaching out to people.
Yeah. And last night, and Mita, you're referencing a panel we led about climbing the corporate ladder without falling down during a pandemic at Luminary with Jess Ling from Amex, Sancheta Ghosh from Bristol Myers Squibb, and Jennifer Barrett from Acorns. And you talked a lot about this idea of intentionality, right? So you're intentionally setting up one-on-ones. I think there's also, particularly when you're more junior and you're starting out in your career, is like, oh, I don't want to bother. They're very busy, and I don't want to set up time with them. I think that's, the advice that you and I think Jess gave last night was, you just got to do it. The worst thing that someone can say, and back to the conversation with Alex before, is no. But you've got to put yourself out there.
You have to. And I have to say to you and anyone listening is that, like, I am so grateful when people are putting time on my calendar, because I'm new and I can't walk around offices and travel. So right. I don't know what level you are. I am super grateful that you're setting up time that I can get to know people. And listen, if I am too busy, I try to do it with kindness. I'll be like, get back to me in April. March is really busy. People will do that. You're not bothering people. And you have to also enter the conversation saying, I have expertise to give, and I have things that I can offer this person, especially if they're coming in new to a company.
Right. How have you, I know how you've stayed connected because we've stayed connected, but how have you stayed connected with your network, which is so incredibly important to whatever you're doing? And I've seen you are a connector, you are an advocate, but how have you personally stayed connected to those within your network and continue to build your network outside of Carta?
I'm trying to, it's just with more intentionality, but I know, like, you and I hadn't talked in a while, and I was like, let's just set up monthlies. And not because I'm not thinking about you, but the days are going by so quickly, especially we all have things going on at home. My children are both off today and we're both working. And so there's, every day is a different day for everybody. And so I think that if there are people that you care about, just put on reminders, right? And then also, we talked about this last night, and I do this as well. If you're thinking about someone, just send them a text. There needs to be no preamble. Just thinking about you.
Yeah, and there doesn't have to be a long conversation either. It can just be like, hey, we do that even without catching up formally or having that.
Yeah, I don't think we tend. Yeah, and then it's like we don't miss a beat in our relationship. The relationships that matter will naturally survive periods of not connecting. I love LinkedIn. I know we're on LinkedIn Live. I love LinkedIn because I feel like it's a very supportive community, and I like to write and share a lot. And I would encourage you all to just be on it more, because I've met so many great people who have reached out to me, and want to meet. And when I have time, I do that. And also, you don't also have to be posting, but there's always ways to comment and engage and just get to know people. So I think that's a great way. But I'm a big texter, as everyone knows. So that's my primary way of keeping in touch with people.
Same with me, right? Because we're so busy, and I, like you said earlier, you're on Zooms all day long. Your friend, and now my friend Callie Schweitzer was this.
Yes.
Told me, Cate, it's not just about posting, like how to leverage LinkedIn. It's also about engaging in the community and commenting and really being a part of the community versus just a scroller.
Yeah, right? And cheering people on, thinking about that, right? Our good friend, DC Marshall, who I know we're both huge fans of, and she also did a great panel for you all last month at Luminary. She was featured in CNBC recently, and I just was so happy, and I shared that.
Yeah.
And so also think about like how we can celebrate and lift each other up as well. Yeah.
There's so much around being, there's one of our members, I think you may or may not know, at Luminary, Nancy Rhodes, she had put in the chat earlier with Alex, is like, don't just talk the talk, walk it.
Absolutely.
Right? So just hitting the like button doesn't really do anything. It's like, how do you engage? How do you support? How do you cheer from the sidelines? And it's not just about you, right? So you've talked a little bit about, nurturing your existing network and building sort of that network within the company. How are you? Because we are hearing quite a bit, and I disagree, but that's just my view, is it's really hard to network right now because we're all on Zoom. And I gave this tip last night. Any Zoom or WebEx that you're on, take a picture.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's names are on there. That gives you the opportunity to, maybe you're not connecting right this second, but after the fact, go back to that picture and say, you know what? I'd really like to meet that person, or I should connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Or what are they all about? How are you continuing to build your network with everything else you have on your plate?
You have to be intentional about it. So for me, it's like, you'll see me post really early in the morning on LinkedIn before my kids get up. And it's like the calm before the storm. And then I pretty much go dark. And in the evening, I'll be looking and posting and commenting and sharing. I also have a tip of just tagging people. So if you tag me or tag Cate, we will join the conversation, because oftentimes, because of the algorithms, love you, LinkedIn, but you don't always see the things that you want to see.
Yes.
So I don't always see what Cate's posting, because it might not come up on my feed, or I might stop scrolling and something might happen that distracts me. So tag people that you want to comment on things to get to know them better. But I would just say it's, intentional. Like, think about your schedule, and if you could take half hour every week to meet somebody new, a virtual coffee, or re-energize a past relationship, I think we all could make time for that.
Yeah, I know you've got a 10:30, and I want to be cognizant of time. I want to go back to the last question, go back to something that you said in a very early part of this conversation about you were different, you were a woman of color, you were bullied, and you just talked about, reaching out to people, building that network. How important is it to you to build a network of women and men that don't look like you? And how important should it be for everyone else?
It's my life's work. It's who I am. I would say to you, it's so easy for me to say, Cate, that I'm an inclusive leader if my entire team and my network looks like me, acts like me, and thinks like me. Isn't it easy to be inclusive? So just really take a hard look at your network. And I ask people, think about, who are the 5 people you call when you have major life decisions, family aside? And if they all look like you and act like you and think like you, we just have to be honest that we're self-segregating. And just think about how you can be more intentional about building cross-cultural relationships.
And that is your life's work.
Yes,
and we love, you know how much I love you as a friend and a mentor and an advocate for what we're doing, but equally as part of our community at Luminary, as an advisory board member, and honestly, just watching everything that you're doing. And if you're not following Mita on LinkedIn, just go to Mita Malik, and you can just click follow. And not only is she writing on LinkedIn, she's writing in so many other outlets. So we can't wait for eventually, when you have time, your book.
Yes,
and I can't wait. We talk about this all the time on text. Can't wait to see you in person. But thank you so much for joining Goaldigger and being just who you are, because it's inspirational, it's motivational, and the world is better off having you in it, Mita.
Thank you so much to you and for Luminary and all that you do and the amazing network of women in men.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Be safe, be healthy, wear a mask. We are getting there, so let's not screw it up. And we'll see you all next Friday. Have a great one. Thanks, Mita.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.